So good morning and welcome to this week's Breakfast with Mike. And this week, we're going to talk about buyers. And we're going to talk about buyers because in some areas of the country, they've already started using the new changes. In other areas, it's supposed to kick in on August 17th. And when I say the new changes, that's like saying that the cops are going to start giving you tickets for running a red light. Like they should have already been giving you tickets for years, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But the truth of the matter is, let's start with this premise because this is a fact. Buyer brokerage has been around for more than 30 years. Okay? This is not new. It's been around for more than 30 years. And when you hear all these people coming out saying, "Oh, the agent never made me sign anything before," they were breaking the law, because even without using a buyer broker agreement, the consumer form has supposed to have been signed at your first face-to-face for more than 20 years. There's a form, and I don't know whether your office has it or doesn't. If they don't, I don't know why, but there's a form. In different areas, I've seen it named different things. I don't know why, because it's a national form. It's supposed to be a consumer information, but basically what it does is it lays out your relationship with the buyer, and both parties are supposed to sign it at the first face-to-face meeting. You can talk with people, but at the first face-to-face meeting, you are supposed to have signed this form with every buyer you work with. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with it, and I'm not going to ask the question because most of you have been with me before, so you already know how to answer this. If I said, how many of you are using at least that form, even if you're not using a buyer broker agreement, every hand should go up. Of course, it won't. And if I got in front of an audience of, say, 100 people, I'd be surprised if 10 hands went up. And yet this has been the law for more than 20 years. For more than 20 years, your first-to-face meeting, you're supposed to sign this with your buyer. And it's pretty sad when only 10% of the people do. This is not new. This has been around. Now, I've been told, I don't have verification on this yet, okay? But I've been told that New Jersey is implementing a fine. I don't know how they're going to monitor this, but I've been told they've instituted a fine where if you do not have a buyer broker agreement with your buyer, there's going to be $1,000 fine on the first offense. That the second offense will be another $1,000 fine. And the third offense would be, you'd be banned from MLS for a year. That's what I've been told. Now, I don't have verification on that, so don't hold me to exact. But even if that's close, I'd be real interested to see how they're going to monitor it. What are they going to do to check to see if you have it? They can institute their own rules. They can say, if you're going to be a member of MLS, you have to abide by certain rules. And one of those rules might be if they request that you send them a copy of the buyer broker agreement, you have to send it. That might be one of their rules. Obviously, it wasn't a rule prior to this, but maybe that's one of their changes. We'll have to wait and see. But all they're doing is they're starting to enforce the law that says you can't run a red light. The law has been on the books for a long, long time. But now all of a sudden we're going to enforce it. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out soon, obviously, because I'm sure there are going to be people out there that are going to break this law, no different than people that run red lights. So if that makes any sense to you, then the rest should make a lot of sense. What I decided to do is give you 3 ways to work with a buyer. We're just going to call them good, better, and best because that's just a simple way of doing it. A good way simply meets the criteria of the new law, which says you're supposed to have a buyer-broker agreement with every buyer that you show a house to. Can you meet with people without a buyer-broker agreement? Yes, absolutely. But according to the settlement that most of the big companies have all agreed to at this point, if you show a buyer a house that's in MLS, you have to have a buyer-broker agreement. I've yet to see it addressed whether or not you have to have a buyer-broker agreement if you show a FSBO. I haven't seen that yet. But if you show something that's in MLS, you need a buyer-broker agreement. So what is the simplest way to do this? Well, the simplest way is to have them sign an agreement for the one house you're going to show them. That'd be a good way of doing it. It just meets the bare minimum. It's a requirement. If I were you, I would start carrying with me that requirement because you're going to have buyers that are going to say, I've never had to sign anything before. Why do I have to sign something now? And they won't believe it if you just tell them. So you should have a copy of it with you and show them. Okay? That'd be a good way of working with a buyer. Just have them sign an agreement for that house. So that if they write an offer on that house, that you would be entitled to whatever commission you decide to put on that form. I'm going to say this. I know that most of you already know this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's on the recording. Do yourself a favor. If you have in the past had a tendency of writing MLS in the place on the buyer-broker agreement where it says what your fee is, you might want to stop doing that because there's going to be nothing there. And if there's nothing there and that's what you've written down, then guess what you're going to get? Nothing. Okay? You need to put a fee in there, and that is the minimum requirements of the new change. You have to have a buyer-broker agreement. It has to set forth the conditions. In other words, it starts today, it ends tomorrow, or starts today, it's just for this house, whatever conditions you put in there, and it has to have a fee. Those are requirements, okay? So if you're using a buyer-broker agreement and you have them, let's just pretend we make up something, you know, we're gonna charge them X amount of apples. That's what we're gonna charge them. Well, that's got to be listed on the buyer-broker agreement. That'd be a good way, because at least that way you're protecting yourself for that showing, okay? A better way would be for you to sit down with these people before you show them any homes. Ask them a bunch of questions. And if you want to know what questions to ask, send me an email to mike@mikefiddler.com. I'll send you a questionnaire that you should ask. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to learn, is this person a buyer? I know you all call them buyers, but they're not. And anybody who's worked with me knows they're nothing. They're a lead until you sit down, qualify them, and they sign an agreement with you. They're not a buyer. Stop calling them buyers. They're a lead until they have sat down with you, answered a bunch of questions, signed a buyer-broker agreement with you. So you ask a bunch of questions. And what am I trying to do? I'm trying to learn, is this someone I should invest my time in? That's what I'm trying to learn. See, most agents go, oh, can I help them? Listen, anybody can help them. I could train a monkey to help them. If I could teach the monkey how to open up a lockbox, I could train a monkey to help them. But is this somebody I want to invest my time in so that the end result is they end up in the house of their dreams, the investment property, whatever it is. Some of you know, and I kid around with it, and I say, if every person you ever meet from now on walked up to you and they had a sign hanging around their neck, and the sign said, I'm going to waste your time for 6 months, I'm never going to buy a house, would you work with them? People will always say, well, no. And I usually respond with, well, then why are you? Because every one of us, without exception, has worked somebody along the way that where someplace in there we said to ourselves, what was I thinking? These people are not going to buy a house. I don't know why I was thinking it. Well, I know the answer to that now. And by the way, I did it too. But I know the answer, and the answer is simple. You don't have enough qualified leads. And if you did, you wouldn't work with them. Okay? If you had enough qualified leads that you could convert into buyers and or sellers, you wouldn't work with some of these people. The problem is we don't have enough, and so we think we can change them. We think we can influence them. Oh, they told me they want to buy. I know. And we believe them. But if they had a sign hanging around their neck and the sign said, I'm going to waste your time for 6 months, I'll never buy, would you work with them? No. Well, then why are you? And here's the answer. Because people don't come with a sign. If they had a sign hanging around the neck, you might not work with them. But people don't come with a sign. It would make it a whole lot easier, wouldn't it? You could just turn around and go, okay, you people that are going to buy, you stay with me. You people, let me refer you to somebody else. I'll call one of my colleagues up and tell them I got a hot lead. We don't do that. We try to work everybody. And what we should do is we should ask enough questions to learn, is this somebody that you want to invest your time in? Is this somebody that truly does need your services in order to buy a house? And if the answer to that is yes, if you get down at the end of those questions, and by the way, I usually say to people, one of the major questions you need to ask at the end is, what if we don't find you the perfect house? And if their answer is, well, I'll just stay here, well, that ought to tell you something. And what it should tell you is run away fast, because they're not going to buy. But if their answer is, no, it's not optional, we've got to move. Okay. Well, I know I can help you. And I'm willing to put that in writing. As a matter of fact, it's the law now that we have to put it in writing. Well, I don't even know you. Why would I sign something like that? It's the new law. It's not optional. But I agree with you. We don't know each other yet. I know I can help you, but you don't know anything about me. And all I know about you is what you've said. So my suggestion, and this would be a step above a good way to get a buyer broker agreement signed. This would be a step above. This would be a better way. And the better way would be to sign a short-term buyer broker agreement. Maybe we go 30 days with it. Depending on what your gut instinct is, maybe it's only 2 weeks. Now, I know what all the standard training teaches us, but any of you that know anything about me by now, you know I'm anything but standard. I'm not normal. I don't think the way normal people do. I don't know why it is. There's some kind of screwed up chromosome in me or something. I don't know. But whatever it is, my instinct says to me, I don't want anything long-term. Matter of fact, for a lot of years, and this is, some of you will remember back then and some of you won't, but there were times when we were told, get a 1-year contract signed. And I never did that, ever. Then it went 6 months. Well, make sure you get at least 6 months. I'm not interested in 6 months. My feeling is if I can't help you in 2, 3 at the absolute most, chances are it's time for us to part ways. I don't want to invest a lot. I should be able to find you something. And if I can't, well, then that's on me. But what if we agreed to work together for 30 days? You give me 30 days. At the end of the 30 days, if we like each other, we still haven't found anything and we want to extend this, we can extend it. If we don't, we'll just part ways. Hopefully we part ways friends. That would be a better way to work with a buyer because it lets them off the hook. And by the way, I would make sure there's a clause in my contract that lets them out anyway. I think it was my mom that told me, and I'm sure she's not the first one, but she said, never work with somebody who doesn't want to work with you. Because if you push them into it, if you hold them into it, they're just going to find some other way out. Let them out. Move on. You know. But to me, the best way for you to work with a buyer is to give them everything that you have. And that includes finding properties that are not in Realtor.com or MLS or any other of those servers that have all the listings. Because one of the things that I learned many, many years ago is a lot of those listings are not the better listings. They're the ones nobody can sell yet. What I learned a long time ago was a lot of top agents have listings that are not on the market. Now, maybe it's a matter of they've sat down with them. Oh, we're going to wait for this to happen, or we need this to happen. I'm retiring here. We're not going to put it on the market. I got to paint. I got to do whatever it is. They're not ready to go on the market immediately. But if you brought them an offer that was acceptable, they would still sell it. And many top producers will have people like that they know they're going to get that listing down the road. They just don't know exactly when. You're not going to interfere with it. Their relationship with them is too solid. You're not going to interfere with it. So if you're not going to interfere with it, what would be the next best thing? Well, how about if they told you about those kinds of properties? To me, the best way of getting a buyer-broker agreement would be I start with meeting them, go through the questions, figure out what that sign would say, determine that, yes, this is somebody who does need my services, but they're also looking for something kind of special. By the way, that would qualify for most buyers. They all think they're looking for something special. They're willing to do what I'm going to suggest. They'll work with my vendors, those type of things. Those are all pluses. I decide, okay, we're going to do this. The only question now is, how long do I want them to sign with me? And again, that's going to come from here. Your gut instinct is going to tell you what you want to do. In my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I wouldn't sign a buyer-broker agreement for more than 3 months. That'd be the maximum I would sign. Now, why do I say that? Because you're going to sit back and say, well, nothing shows up in MLS. It takes longer. I've been working with this one person for 2 years. If you've been working with somebody for 2 years, they have nothing, no motivation to move. Because you can't tell me you couldn't have found them a property in a lot less time if you'd used all of your own resources. And by that, I don't mean you just put their name in and, oh, we're going to email you all the latest stuff. And oh my God, please. You want to go find them a house? Go find them a house. Talk to the top agents that you already know have things that might be coming. There's a couple of them on this call right now that if I was in that area, I would call them. Say, hey, this is what I got. What do you got coming? And if we had developed a relationship, chances are they would tell me what's coming. We put a deal together. Next thing you know, you see it on MLS, all right, but it's already under agreement. If I couldn't find him a house that way, I'd go back through any of the old expireds and see if maybe one of those is going to fit for them. If that doesn't work, I'd look for the sale by owners and turn around and start calling sale by owners. Say, listen, I haven't even seen your house yet, but I am working with this one client. This is what they're looking for. They happen to be looking in your area. Is there any chance that I could show it? And if so, would you pay me a fee if we put something together? If that didn't work, and I know most of you won't do this, but if that didn't work and I had a buyer who I knew needed to buy something and wanted to buy in whatever town or whatever area, I'd knock on every door in that area if I had to. For some unknown reason, years ago, MLS came out and we all were trained to believe that that is where all the properties are. I'm sorry, folks, it's just not true. Matter of fact, if you do the numbers, you'll find that the total number of sales in MLS represents less than 10% of the total number of homes available. Now, some of you are going to go, well, wait a minute, Mike, what are you talking about? How do I know they're going to sell? You don't unless you ask them. But more than 90% of the homes, actual homes, and I've done this number in different states. I've also done it in nationwide. More than 90% of the homes did not sell in the last 2-3 years. That's a whole lot of inventory that you're not tackling. Well, yeah, but we were trained. I know how you were trained. I wish I had trained you because I would not have trained you that way. I would have trained you that you want to find out, if you want to see how many homes there are, go up in a plane, look down. There's a lot of homes out there. And normally around 10% of them might have a sign. What about the other 90%? Well, yeah, but if they were going to move, they'd call one of us. Yeah, well, they're not. That's the whole point. And in the market we're in right now, they're less likely to call you because guess what they're doing? They're looking at MLS and Realtor.com, and they're not seeing anything that they want to buy, so they don't put their house on the market. Has anybody figured this out yet? Well, what if you could help them to find a house using this same technique that I'm teaching you right now? What if you could say to them, listen, I've got this buyer, this is what they're looking for, boom. Let's say we put something together. They say, no, there's nothing out there for us to move into. Well, listen, I will do the same thing for you that I'm doing for my current client. I'll knock on every door in the area. I'll find your house. Now, by the way, some of you are going to sit there and say, gee, Mike, that sounds a lot like work. Yes, this is called a job. We have become entirely too lazy in our industry right now. Everything is dependent on MLS. That needs to change. And come August 17th, it's going to change. To some degree, it's going to change. Now, it remains to be seen how many other changes will have to come out as a result of what they've already agreed to. But there, you can guarantee this is not the end of this. A good way, get them to sign something for the one house. A better way, ask a bunch of questions, get them to sign a short-term agreement. The best way, show them all the things that you're going to do that nobody else will. Now, you'll notice I haven't talked about commission at all in these three, good, better, best. But in my opinion, when you get to the best way and you are willing to do all those things, that's worth something. And you should get paid a premium for doing that. Now, I have students right now that will tell you that they've gotten premiums for doing that. And when I say premium, I don't mean what the seller was offering. I mean what their buyer broker contract said. See, a lot of agents right now, they'll write one thing down, but then if the seller isn't offering that, they'll just take whatever the seller is offering. Well, I got news for you, folks. That's going to change. Buyer agents are going to have to get better at negotiating their own commission. But that's a whole other survey. That's a whole other seminar. That's a whole other set of questions and problems for another day. Good, better, best. 3 different ways to get a buyer broker agreement signed. Make sure you get paid. I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to turn off the recording, let these guys throw some questions at me, because I can see by the look in a couple of their eyes, there's probably some coming. Wish you'd been here. Maybe you'll watch it and show up next time. In the meantime,